Conservation isn't an individual sport, and it isn't a competition. Yes, we award a prize to an individual who has achieved great things. This campaign, this mission, can only be won together. That is why we're here, to stand as one against this monumental challenge, and to honor those who rise to it every single day. The individuals recognized by the Indianapolis Prize are working on the front lines, in the wilderness, the laboratory, and in places that transcend imagination. They are leading a global movement in which countless life forms hang in the balance, including our own. Now is the time to stand together and do the right thing, so that the next generation and the one after that can continue to call this planet we share with so many others home. This is the time. This is the Indianapolis Prize.
I'm Scott Swan here at the Indianapolis Zoo, and tonight we're here to celebrate heroes like Dr. Amanda Vincent, winner of the 2021 Indianapolis Prize. And we're also here to honor all the other finalists who have made it their life's work to save species around the world. They all have different passions, but share the same goal, conserving our planet. These men and women have saved dozens of species from the threat of extinction and preserved their habitats so these animals can thrive. Some of the honorees created new national parks, passed laws, and founded organizations to protect animal welfare. Their work aimed at helping preserve these species and our planet for future generations. The prize was created by the Indianapolis Zoological Society as part of its commitment to conservation. During the next hour, we'll share the stories and the mission of the Indianapolis Prize. The Indianapolis Prize is like the Nobel Prize, but for animal conservation, and the winner receives $250,000 to continue their efforts. Indianapolis Prize winner Amanda Vincent, along with the other finalists, were honored recently at a gala at the JW Marriott in downtown Indianapolis. The event was co-hosted by Ann Thompson, the Chief Environmental Affairs Correspondent for NBC News. It was an evening to celebrate and recognize these men and women who are truly champions for our planet. I'm here now with the seahorses at the Indianapolis Zoo. These marine creatures mean the world to our Indianapolis Prize winner, Dr. Amanda Vincent. She's known as the savior of seahorses. She has spent her entire life making sure these little creatures have a safe and sustainable place to live.
I grew up in a family that was pretty eccentric. When I was 2 years old, my father and my mother threw over everything to do with our normal life and headed off to South America. I've always felt this deep affinity for the outside. There's something about its moods and its abundance, as it once was, that gripped me to the bottom of my soul.
So, what have you got in here? Fins, mask. Have you got the research gear ready?
This is how you change the world. How you build a future you want with all your heart. One that we all need. You prepare thoroughly, you build a team, you engage people, and you never lose your passion.
This area really is my spiritual home in the Philippines. This is where the conservation work on seahorses first started globally.
Dr. Amanda Vincent was the first biologist to study seahorses underwater in their natural habitats. Realizing that the seahorse's popular cultural appeal could be a catalyst for driving major advances in ocean conservation, she founded Project Seahorse in 1996, an organization dedicated to finding conservation solutions by understanding interdependencies between marine life and human communities. Beginning with her early work in the Philippines, Vincent's science gave birth to global action.
We put seahorses at the center of the universe. We do research that will inform conservation action, and then that conservation action guides our research.
Seahorses, I think, were probably Amanda's shrewdest move. If you reach the objective of saving seahorses, you can only achieve that by having a healthier marine habitat.
I'd once seen a notice saying that the Philippines exports an awful lot of seahorses to help men with weak tails. I translate literally from German. Everybody kept directing us to this area of the Philippines and eventually down to this very village. So we came here and indeed found that about half of the villagers were dependent on seahorse fishing for half of their income.
Dr. Vincent took on a challenge that many considered insurmountable: the unsustainable global trade of dead seahorses. Each year, millions are harvested for use in traditional medicine. Vincent successfully fought to place seahorses on the IUCN Red List of threatened species, leading the way for the listing of seahorses at the 2002 Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Seahorses became the first marine fish to be included in the convention since it was signed. Because of Amanda Vincent, 182 nations are now required to regulate seahorses for sustainability.
That was an unbelievable watershed in marine conservation. Amanda just made us realize that seahorses were being driven to extinction by unregulated trade and got people to think about fish as wildlife. They're not just a product that's just dried and traded and sold.
Amanda and her Project Seahorse team were looking for a country that had a strong marine conservation reputation to help endorse the protection of the trade of seahorses. And so, of course, we accepted wholeheartedly to support her efforts in this area. We were able to show that we can not only help protect the species, but help reintroduce it, and I hope that it will continue for many years to come.
Beginning in the waters of the Andayan Island in the Philippines in the 1990s, Vincent created a model that has become a guiding light for conservation action: marine protected areas. Many guidelines for global conservation action come from Dr. Vincent's work with local governments and citizens where seahorses live. These areas have since expanded to over 35 protected watersheds around the world.
If you do it right, then that community tells the next all about it, and the next one is easier. That's what's made marine protected areas so common in the Philippines, that villages see the benefits and they want one.
When I was a kid, the idea of a reserve in the ocean was crazy. And we're going to be shooting for 30% by 2030, and there's a policy commitment to that. We've got the seahorses flourishing in a well-protected habitat with good commitment from the community in a country that we're working with on a national level that is playing a role in global conservation. This is where it all started.
Globally, she's an icon or like a symbol for the seahorses. She's really an amazing person. She raised 2 kids as a single mom, at the same time trying to save the ocean. So it's, what can you say, a superwoman maybe, I don't know.
I have the Philippines close to my heart. I mean, this island is called Handayan Island. I named my daughter Andaya after this island so that I would always have Handayan and Andaya close to my heart.
I think we're really lucky to travel with our mom. If you actually go and see and feel and learn about the environment around you, then I think we have a bigger understanding. I'm very proud of her.
She really does tons of stuff, and being a single parent is really hard. She's a really good mom.
If we're going to get it right for the planet, we have to get it right for the ocean. I really think we're poised to make a big breakthrough, but it will require a collective effort. Just throw your heart and soul into it.
I also got the chance to sit down with Amanda here in Indianapolis. I'll share a portion of our conversation coming up in our next half hour. It is feeding time here for the giraffes at the Indianapolis Zoo, and they are hungry. We want to go ahead and honor the 2021 recipient of the Jane Alexander Global Wildlife Ambassador Award. This is named after the actress Jane Alexander, and it's designed to honor someone who uses their celebrity status to promote conservation efforts. The reigning monarch of Monaco, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II, is an ocean conservationist and philanthropist for the protection of human rights. He's also a 5-time Olympian. Back in 2006, His Serene Highness established the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation to address the effects of climate change on our planet. Monaco also provides funding to support Project Seahorse efforts to protect wild populations.
We have no other choice if we are to survive on this planet. That we have to make the link also between nature's health and human health.
The foundation focuses on safeguarding the biodiversity and resources of the Mediterranean basin, the polar regions, and the least developed countries. The Principality of Monaco also helps support the efforts of Indianapolis Prize winner Amanda Vincent and her work to save the seahorses. His Serene Highness continues a family legacy of conservation with his work to preserve our oceans, coral reefs, and sea life.
Well, I feel humbled and honored to be recognized by such a prestigious organization. And it only, I think, reinforces my commitment and for the fight for our planet, for the preservation of endangered ecosystems, both marine and terrestrial.
Previous winners of the Jane Alexander Global Wildlife Ambassador Award include actor Harrison Ford back in 2018 for his bold conservation efforts both here in the U.S. and around the world. And in 2016, actor Sigourney Weaver was recognized for her work with mountain gorillas in Rwanda. We're here at the new Alligators and Crocodiles exhibit at the Indianapolis Zoo. These guys are enjoying a little breakfast right now. The Indianapolis Prize started 15 years ago with one question: what more can be done to help save endangered species and preserve their habitats? The answer became the Indianapolis Prize, which aims to help conservation efforts with significant financial assistance and other support programs. The winner receives $250,000 for their efforts, and each finalist gets $10,000, all of which will go a long way to support conservation worldwide. We're here in the forests area of the Indianapolis Zoo talking with Dr. Rob Shoemaker. He is the president and CEO. And beyond the zoo just being a great place to watch all the animals, and over here we've got some eagles, conservation is such a huge part of what you do. Tell us about that.
Well, conservation is our mission here, and we do that in really 3 big ways, and you already mentioned the first one. The first thing that we do is give great conservation information to our 1 million+ visitors that come here every year. Of course, you know about the Indianapolis Prize, but the other thing that's really important for us here at the zoo is the money that we provide to field conservation projects directly, people working in the wild to help save individual species. So we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year funding those projects all around the world. Everything from African elephants to orangutans to chimpanzees and gorillas, species we don't even have here at the zoo. But the other thing we do is we're very careful about taking care of Indiana wildlife as well. So hellbenders might not be a familiar species to most people, but it's the largest salamander in the United States, and they're right here in the Blue River in Indiana. We have several hundred here that we're raising up, and they'll be released back into the wild when they get to the right size. So working right at home, because our heart and soul is right here in Indianapolis, but also having an international reach to the conservation work that we do around the world.
Looking at these beautiful brown bears here at the Indianapolis Zoo, I know a lot of our viewers may be wondering, what are some things that I can do at home to practice good conservation?
It's such a great question, because everybody wants to get involved in preserving species in the wild and preserving biodiversity. I think that answer is going to be a little different for each person. It depends on what they're already doing or what they're interested in. Here's an easy one. Everybody should be recycling everything that they can. If you're not recycling now, start with aluminum. Never ever throw away an aluminum can again. Make sure it goes in a recycling bin. Make sure you recycle your used electronics. All those kinds of things are important to consider, and most importantly, do the work. Find out the thing that is making a difference for you and what you can do to make a difference for the planet. That's the place to start.
If you'd like to learn more about the work being done by these leading conservationists, we've got much more information online. Just go to WTHR.com/IndyPrize. You can also stay up to date by following them online on Facebook and Twitter. I'm here in the penguin exhibit at the Indianapolis Zoo. This is such a popular place because look at these penguins. They are so cute. They just want to come up and talk to you. But out in the wild, penguins face a lot of dangers, from harvesting to habitat damage from oil dumped at sea. But I want to introduce you now to a woman known as the protector of penguins.
Dee Boersma and I first encountered each other in the Galapagos Islands in the 1970s. We've roomed together on expeditions.
It's about 1.5 meters back. She's got 2 eggs.
I love the way Dee looks at the world, at life in the world, looks at her beloved penguins and treats them with such respect, really zeroes in and gets to know individual colonies, individual birds, rehabilitates nests, and is bringing back some of these critically endangered animals from what would seem to be an inevitable track to extinction.
Dee fundamentally loves penguins. The approach she's used is really to think about how penguins integrate across a variety of things that play out in the ocean. So it's a combination of being fundamentally interested in this single set of species of birds, but also in terms of what they tell us about the broader world.
She's extremely well known for this 30-year-plus data set that she has on Magellanica penguins in South America. She's able to do all of the governmental relations and soft communication and people skills that are required to get conservation accomplished on the ground, but she's really driven by the quality of science.
Dedication is a word too many of us take lightly, but few would dispute that Dee Boersma has dedicated her life to studying and saving penguins. She's worked virtually non-stop in the Galapagos Islands as well as Punta Tombo, Argentina, home to the world's largest population of Magellanica penguins, going toe-to-toe with companies that were commercially harvesting the birds for their oil and skin.
I couldn't believe that anybody was going to harvest, Magellanica penguins. And so I went down to determine what was the population size at Punta Tombo and could they harvest penguins in a sustainable manner. And of course, the answer to that, I knew before I went. No, you can't do that.
Dealing with Argentine bureaucracy is quite something. I think a person of lesser drive would have said, forget it, it's not worth it. She tackles things with great gusto, follows through, which is why we have detailed demographic data on the penguins at Punta Tombo. It's one of the best demographic series of any wild animal anywhere.
Dr. Boersma's work directing the Magellanica Penguin Project at Punta Tombo revealed that penguins were not only under assault from those harvesting them, but were also severely threatened by oil dumped at sea. She persuaded the Argentinian government to move oil tanker lanes further offshore and create the historic protected area at Punta Tombo, a critical achievement that continues to protect vital ocean feeding grounds. But as sea levels rise, some of the first lessons in how habitats are affected can be learned by studying penguins where they live.
Penguins are really ocean sentinels, and they tell us a lot about the environment before you even really recognize it. Sea levels, of course, because of global climate change, are rising. Penguins nest really close to the beaches, so some of the nests that were suitable 40 years ago are now gone.
Dee is famous for getting her hands dirty. She ends up hauling literally tons of lava rock to build these huts, which serve as artificial caves for Galapagos penguins to nest in.
Dee's personality is big, it's intense. It's why she's been able to do all that she's been able to do for the penguins and for wildlife.
This is a white morph.
When you see her working with other students, you can see them all immediately become enthralled in what she's talking about because she exudes so much passion.
This 40 years ago was not a marine reserve. It is now.
Dee is the ambassador for those organisms that share the planet with us. They don't have a voice. Unless one of us gives them a voice, Dee has been a powerful voice for them.
I want people to change the world, and I want to make it better for wildlife and for conservation. And that's only going to be done one person at a time. All of us can do something.
As you saw, Dee's work centers around penguins that live near the equator. But these cute penguins that you see here at the Indianapolis Zoo, they prefer colder climates. Like the king penguin, which lives up to its name as one of the largest penguins. They also have gentoo penguins. These are the ones who like to zoom around underwater. And there are also the rockhoppers. You can recognize them by their distinct yellow feathers. Well, we've got some construction underway outside the Indianapolis Zoo entrance. And Dr. Rob, you've actually got some plans for the entrance itself, right?
We do. A very significant change is coming, but it's going to take us a little while. Opening Memorial Day of 2023, we'll have an entire new entrance at the zoo. So you can probably hear it behind me. We have a new pathway coming through our gardens. All our visitors will be coming in, walking through our gardens to a brand new entrance. And then where we're standing now is nowhere close to the new visitor services area. That'll be far down in the parking lot. We'll have a whole new visitor services area, and people will be able to come in. And what you see here, of course, all of our ticketing area, and membership area, that's all going to go away. And what we'll have is a brand new visitor services plaza, new, expanded, frankly much more beautiful, that will take people through the gardens, and going into the gardens will be their first big experience, along with some really special ambassador animals that they'll meet right when they step into the gardens.
And we've got some new residents of the Indianapolis Zoo coming here. They're going to be bouncing in, aren't they?
They are very bouncy animals, and so it's going to be very exciting. And we are opening in 2022, Memorial Day of 2022, Kangaroo Crossing, which will be a walk-through red kangaroo exhibit for people. So right in with the kangaroos, have a chance, if the kangaroos want to come up to you, have a chance to touch them and feed them. And we're also going to mix in some Australian cockatoos. So the whole idea is to give people a real sense about Australian wildlife, something not well represented here at the zoo. So we're very, very excited to add that this coming May.
Yeah, that's going to be very exciting.
Oh, fantastic. A very, very welcome opportunity. I think people are going to respond really well to it. And the kangaroos are already set to arrive. So they'll be here much, much earlier, so they get used to us and we get used to them. And we'll start introducing them to people this coming spring.
I'm here with one of the great ape species of the Indianapolis Zoo, the orangutans. And this is Max enjoying a little popcorn, really enjoying that popcorn. But in the wild, rapid deforestation forces animals out of their homes. Indianapolis Prize finalist Dr. Christoph Bosch has dedicated his life to making sure another great ape species, chimpanzees, have a safe place to live. So now I want to introduce you to the champion of chimpanzees.
I think I am like every human on this planet. The chimpanzees are our closest living relative. They look sometimes so incredibly similar to us. And, you know, they behave like humans. They use tools. So there is a fascination, because when you look at the behavior of the chimpanzees, you somewhere see something about us there. Fresh algae.
Christoph has been a leader in chimpanzee conservation in West Africa for decades. His passion for conservation is well known, and he has been instrumental in creating national parks as a tool for permanent protection of the environment and the chimpanzee populations in these countries.
Dr. Christoph Bosch is an academic administrator, a professor, and a researcher. But he's also an explorer, a pioneer, and thankfully, a warrior for the survival of beings with whom we share so much. Bosch's lifelong dedication to studying and saving primates began early in his career when he worked with mountain gorillas in Rwanda under the legendary Dr. Dian Fossey. In his early 20s, he shifted his focus to the Ivory Coast of Africa, where he spent much of his last 4 decades studying the behavior and habitats of one of our closest relatives, the chimpanzee.
When you start, I had no idea how to find the chimpanzees. There is no path, there is no way. You can lose your way in a second. They all are extremely scared of you. So when we spent our first 2 years in the forest, we only saw black shadows running away.
At Thai National Park, Dr. Bosch created the Pan-African Chimpanzee Program, studying an aspect of chimpanzee life that most might overlook, their culture. Developing a new understanding of the rich complexities of the chimpanzee, it also led to a grim discovery of the perils facing them.
There were illegal loggings going on everywhere in Africa. The forest is being destroyed, cut. And that, made it very clear to me that you can't be just in your ivory tower as a scientist. You need also to consider what is going on with nature.
Agricultural deforestation and hunting over many decades resulted in chimpanzee populations dropping to critical levels. Dr. Bosch and his wife Hedwig created the Wild Chimpanzee Foundation, which protects chimpanzees by preserving their habitats. To date, WCF has established protected lands in the Ivory Coast, Liberia, and Guinea, engaging local farmers and policymakers to protect chimpanzee habitats while finding balance in their own way of life.
What species is this one? We are working with the farmers. We are also showing them how to do it, because we know once we leave, it is very important for the farmer to understand why it is important to leave trees on the farm.
This has been a driving thinking in our project to keep this coexistence alive, working with the local communities, because otherwise it will never work.
Thanks to Dr. Bosch's Wild Chimpanzee Foundation, the 500 chimpanzees remaining at Thai National Forest will have their best opportunities for survival. The same is true of the Futa-Jalon Muyan Bafing region in Guinea, home to the world's largest remaining chimpanzee population.
He inspires you just by his passion. If somebody can love nature this much, then there must be a lot of value in it.
I feel actually adept toward the chimpanzees. They had allowed me to make my life as a researcher successful, and now I think also that I need to pay back something for the chimpanzees. There's a lot of hope, and the hope is that we have national parks everywhere, and that it will be a source of well-being for the whole of humanity. The only way to improve things is to continue to fight.
According to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, deforestation and forest degradation threatens the survival of many species. Since the 1960s, over half of the tropical forests around the world have been destroyed. We're here with the sea lions, and Dr. Rob, I wonder if we could talk a little bit about the Indianapolis Prize and the history. Where did the idea come from?
Well, Indianapolis Prize started in 2006. That was our very first gala, and the first award was presented in 2006 to George Archibald, who studies cranes. The idea came from my predecessor, Mike Crowther. This was an innovation that he came up with, and the focus was absolutely clear and very pure at the very beginning, and it has remained there, and that is to find a single individual who has made a tremendous impact on a species or a group of species to help save them in the wild, and to really elevate them and give them the attention that we normally give to people like professional athletes or professional performers, actors, actresses, musicians, and so on, but to really elevate them and talk about the incredible work they're doing to help preserve the natural world.
Dr. Rob, why is the Indianapolis Prize so important?
Well, the prize is important for a number of reasons, but the number one reason for me is that it's the only award of its kind. It's the world's leading prize for animal conservation. We elevate that one single individual who is doing something remarkable to preserve the natural world, and we give them the attention they deserve, make them much more of a household name, and give them resources that help them move forward and continue with the kind of impact that they would like to have.
Now, what kind of impact does the Indianapolis Prize do for these winners?
You know, the impact we can measure in a variety of different ways. One that's easy to talk about is how many people around the world hear about the winner of the Indianapolis Prize, and that number's in the billions. So billions of people every cycle learn about the Indianapolis Prize winner, but it also gives them the recognition and in some ways the opportunities to really expand their influence. So we hear it over and over again from any of the prize winners. They've had the opportunity to do more, meet more people, have greater impact, and in some cases have the opportunities for greater and greater resources to continue and move their work forward. So it has elevated each of these incredible conservationists to a whole new level. Just lets them be that much more impactful and that much more successful in the work they're already doing.
I'm with the Caribbean flamingos, and what they really enjoy eating are these tiny shrimp inside of this cup. They are hungry. Amanda Vincent is the 8th recipient of the Indianapolis Prize, and while you may not know their names, their work is life-changing for dozens of species. In fact, let me go ahead and show you a small portion of their incredible achievements. The work of Russ Mittermeier has protected hundreds of species and millions of acres of critical habitat around the world. Carl Jones is credited with saving birds, reptiles, and mammals from the brink of extinction. Patricia Wright rediscovered a lemur thought to be extinct and discovered a new lemur species. Steve Amstrup helped protect polar bears under the Endangered Species Act. Ian Douglas Hamilton pioneered GPS tracking techniques that are critical in elephant research and conservation. George Schaller is considered the founding father of modern wildlife conservation, working with giant pandas, mountain gorillas, and lions. And the first winner of the Indianapolis Prize, George Archibald, is credited with preserving the world's 15 crane species and their wetland habitats. Still to come, he's changed laws to protect thousands of species all across Mexico. I'll introduce you to the Indianapolis Prize finalist known as the Guardian of the Jaguars. Plus, I go one-on-one with 2021 Indianapolis Prize winner Amanda Vincent. We'll talk about the impact it'll have on her efforts to save the seahorses. Welcome back. We are with the winner of the Indianapolis Prize, Dr. Amanda Vincent. Welcome to Indianapolis and congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, not least because it's taken a while with COVID to actually hold this amazing ceremony. So, yeah.
Why did you choose seahorses?
I love seahorses because they're the only fish that holds your hand, first of all, with their tails, but don't do that. And secondly, because the male gets pregnant, and only the male gets pregnant, so that really excited me. I started studying them for that reason and then realized, oh my goodness, they're being exploited, removed from the ocean in vast numbers, and that's led to a career in conservation.
What is the biggest challenge facing seahorses?
Yeah, the single biggest challenge for all ocean creatures is badly managed fisheries, but for seahorses in particular, they're caught by bottom trawls. So I want you just to close your eyes and imagine a forest that you love or a hillside that you love with helicopters dropping razor wires and mowing down every tree and every bush, and removing every bird, bee, butterfly, beaver, plowing into the topsoil, and then selling that for chicken feed or animal feed, aquaculture feed. That is bottom trawling in the ocean. It lays waste. It's annihilation.
Our viewers who are watching want to help. They want to be able to do something. So what can the average person do right now to help save seahorses and marine life?
The most important thing you can do is use your vote wisely and really ask policymakers what they're doing for the ocean. Particularly, we need to end bottom trawling, and that needs to come out loud and clear. You can do that partly by your personal choice. So when you order seafood or you choose your fish at a market, ask whether it came from any form of bottom trawling. And if the answer is a quizzical, I don't know, you ask next time. And if we all ask every time, we're going to get the answers. And then we're going to say, not buying it because it destroys the ocean. So both on a political and a personal level, it can be so valuable. And if you've got skills to offer, reach out to a conservation organization. We want IT specialists and marketing specialists, and we want people in retail who can make a difference. It's all of our problem, but together we'll probably make a difference.
Winning an Indianapolis Prize, this is a victory for seahorses and marine life, is it not?
I think it reflects the work we've been able to do. So we've had some remarkable success stories. We're a tiny group, my Project Seahorse team. And yet winning the Indianapolis Prize reflects the fact we've found solutions that resonate around the world. So we've been able to put in place, for example, 35 no fishing zones in the Philippines, which are locally managed and locally enforced. We've been able to change national policy in, for example, Australia. So now you require permits to export the seahorses. We've been able to put in place the first ever global export regulations, which means you must have sustainable management of your populations to export them. And by doing that, what's so remarkable is we've spearheaded change for a whole host of other marine fishes. So for example, now you have to have global export regulations for many species of sharks and for rays and for European eels. We're proud of the fact that we set precedent that benefits many species. And now we constantly point out that by saving seahorses, we're helping to save the seas. And that then, of course, has a massive resonance. And I think the Indianapolis Prize really is a reflection of our gains and our successes, not in finding problems, which is relatively easy, but in converting those to solutions. You know, when you go to talk to people and you say you won that prize, you can't be dismissed. You have to be recognized as having talents and skills. And so that recognition enables us to lever change. It's that simple. We can have a better chance of supporting the oceans having won the Indianapolis Prize.
Dr. Amanda Vincent, congratulations on winning the Indianapolis Prize.
Thank you so much.
And we're taking a look at a kudu, an ostrich, and a vulture. So lots of animals to look at here at the Indianapolis Zoo. You've got a new prize for young conservationists.
We do. I'm very, very excited and proud to announce this. So of course the Indianapolis Prize was the first award that we started in 2006. In 2012, we added the Jane Alexander Global Wildlife Ambassador Award, and this year we're adding the Emerging Conservationist Award, so that trio will be absolutely phenomenal. This Emerging Conservationist Award is specific for people who are 40 or under, who are doing real conservation work, and we want to find that person who's right at that point in their career where they need the support to go to the next level, to really secure their success and make sure people know they're doing extraordinarily good work to save the planet. We will award the first one in 2023.
And how can people get involved?
Best thing they can do, go to our website, indianapolisprize.org or indyprize.org. You can learn all about it and find all the details, and also find out how you can take a step to support animal conservation.
Another aspect of conservation is preserving animals and their habitats by changing laws. I'm here with one of the flocks of macaws in the forest area of the Indianapolis Zoo, one of the species protected by Mexico's Act for Endangered Species. It includes protections for 4,000 plant and animal species, and this has been the work of Indianapolis Prize finalist Dr. Gerardo Caballos, who's also known as the guardian of the jaguars.
What I love most is to be outside. I really love to go to wild places to see mammals and birds in the wild. This drives basically my appetite to save this species and these habitats, and this keeps me going. And those are the howler monkeys. Good.
Gerardo is one of the most important conservationist scientists in the world. You are drawn to him and you're drawn to listening to him. He knows what he's talking about, and you're gonna have a good time, you're gonna laugh a lot.
I will compare him with Jane Goodall, with David Attenborough. The thing about Gerardo is he can make a small thing bigger.
Dr. Gerardo Caballos has dedicated his life to protecting Mexico's richly diverse wild places. In 1991, he helped create the country's first Endangered Species Act, a landmark that protects over 4,000 species and 1.5% of the country's landmass. These protected areas have expanded to over 3 million acres as of 2020. To ensure the safety of these lands, Ceballos focuses his efforts on saving Mexico's most iconic flagship species, the jaguar.
Hola, Panchito.
In the Calacomule Biosphere Reserve, Ceballos has enlisted some of Mexico's top environmental scientists to run a sophisticated jaguar tracking program.
We put these collars on the dogs so we can follow them. We track the jaguars with them.
Under his guidance, the jaguar population in Mexico has grown from 4,000 in 2010 to nearly 5,000 as of 2021.
Oh, wow, that's great. This is one of our jaguars. The camera traps is one of our basic tools to develop conservation measures. We choose jaguar for several reasons. On the one hand, in Mexico, jaguar has been very important for the culture since prehistoric times. There is an estimate that we're saving more than 70,000 species of plant, animals, and microorganisms. If you protect jaguars, you protect the forest, and by doing that, we're saving the whole thing. The Jaguar project wouldn't be able to be successful if we didn't have the local people. They know how to chase the jaguar, they know how to trap it, they know how to run the camp, they know how to walk in the forest.
He has actually achieved real conservation strategies, and not only the strategies, but the strategies have become like this, private reserves that really work.
Countless species still face the prospect of extinction in Mexico, where climate change, agriculture, and land development continue to threaten its rich biodiversity. Ceballos extends his understanding of conservation planning into the corridors of power, forming the National Jaguar Conservation Alliance and pushing government for policies that support conservation efforts worldwide.
In Mexico, he's highly regarded by the government, from ministers of the environment to governors. He has had a lot of influence. He has helped to create several reserves or expand other reserves. And that's a work that should last probably 100 years and will benefit thousands of people.
He always tells us that everything can be improved. He always motivates us, showing us example of better projects than this, or people doing better things than us, or how we can grow as biologists.
But Gerardo has a goal. I know this guy is a very smart guy. He's a leader in the conservation. He's one of the leaders in the worldwide.
We are basically facing what I think is the most important challenge that humanity has faced, because life on Earth depends on the wild plants and animals. How do I keep optimistic in the face of so many challenges? It's hard to tell. It is something I think you are born with, you know? To think my work is helping plants and animals to survive, and it's also giving a better chance for my children to being able to see this when they grow up. I mean, I feel at peace.
Protections for jaguars in Mexico over the last 10 years have made a difference. It's proof that people and wildlife can coexist. And now jaguars are thriving in protected places that get support from local people. The world's oceans are full of mystery, but there's one woman who spent her life exploring areas no human has ever seen to help give us a better understanding of life below the surface. Her groundbreaking efforts are bringing change to marine life all around the world. I want to introduce you to the woman who's known as her deepness, Dr. Sylvia Earle.
Sylvia is a person of great joy. She's brave and she's bold, and that comes across in everything that she does. As a woman and as a professional and as a mother, Sylvia provides incredible inspiration on a daily basis. She's on a bigger mission. She rises above.
Sylvia's an explorer. She's a scientist. She's just relentless in that drive to go deeper, go further, be the first human to lay eyes on a part of our world where most life on Earth exists.
When she walks into a room, everybody is just in awe over her. They know what a national treasure she is. She is recognized globally as a scientist. I see her as a woman who's trying to save humanity.
It may sound like a cliche, but Dr. Sylvia Earle is quite simply a legend. Still hard at work in her mid-80s, she's one of those people who children come home from school talking about, and one of those people you see on posters and in documentaries. New Jersey born, she spent much of her early life in Florida, where she found her calling.
My backyard was the Gulf of Mexico, and I think that helped focus my mind and educate me about the diversity of life in the sea. That basic history of life, it's right there for anyone to witness.
After earning a PhD from Duke University, Earle applied for the groundbreaking Tektite project in 1969, an unprecedented underwater laboratory off the coast of the Virgin Islands. Earle became the first woman to lead an undersea expedition, giving her all-female team of scientists weeks of uninterrupted ecological studies.
People just went crazy over the fact that these women went down there and they were able to carry the gear and they were doing all these things.
In 1979, Earle walked untethered on the sea floor at the greatest depth attained by any woman in history. In 1990, she became the first female chief scientist of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Later, she turned her attention back to field work, using deep-sea filmmaking to bring the darkest region of the ocean to a worldwide audience, and working to pioneer technology that will make deep-sea tourism a reality.
If there were one thing that I could do to change the way people think about the ocean and about the creatures who live in the ocean, it would be to get them to just understand that ocean life is wildlife. We need to get people to understand, to care why wildlife matters, and to find the balance, a place for ourselves within the natural systems that keep us alive.
In 2006, Dr. Earle inspired then-President George W. Bush to create the Northwestern Hawaiian Islands Marine National Monument. The project was expanded by President Barack Obama, who came to see Earle's work firsthand at the Midway Atoll in 2016.
I see one of your constituents has come up here.
I noticed. Doesn't seem that excited about meeting the president. All of us depend on these ecosystems. And
yes,
in some ways, they're incredibly resilient if we do the right thing, but they're also really fragile.
Dr. Earle received the 2009 TED Prize for her proposal to establish a global network of marine protected areas known as hope spots. Areas where ocean life has been depleted, but that can rebound if protected. Her foundation, known as Mission Blue, has grown the network to more than 130 hope spots around the world.
She's the first one to get in the water and the last one to get out. You know, this woman is leaving it all in the field. And so that inspires you to do the same?
Don't ever ask to carry her bag. It's kind of a mystery how she's able to keep the pace she does, 300 days of travel. She's as tough as nails.
That's her. She's out on the road 6-7 days a week, giving her message because we haven't gotten it yet. The time is now, and she knows that. That's what drives her.
If people ask me, do you still dive? And I say, well, I'm still breathing. As long as I can continue to get out there and down there and splash around in the wild places, I will. I have to. I don't have a choice.
As you heard, Sylvia has no plans of slowing down anytime soon. You can follow along on her dives and see what inspires her by following her social media pages. These elephants really are incredible creatures, but they face a lot of dangers out in the wild. Still ahead, we'll share the story of the Indianapolis Prize finalists working to preserve their habitats and share more on why he's known as the warrior for wildlife. Welcome to Tembo Camp here at the Indianapolis Zoo. This is a great place to get up close with an African elephant. In fact, you can actually bathe them. This is Kubwa. She's 45 and she's gonna look beautiful when I'm done bathing her. In fact, do you want to hear her speak? Listen to this. You know, preserving habitats for elephants in the wild is crucial for their survival, of the entire ecosystem and countless species around the world. For more than 4 decades, our next finalist has been working to do just that. Right now, I want to introduce you to Dr. John Robinson. He has spent his entire life being a warrior for wildlife.
At its core, I think I am a person of the world. That's where I feel most comfortable. Being in new places, I think of myself as someone who is a global citizen, and I'm doing what I can to contribute to that global world.
Illegal fishing. That is a big thing in this area.
When we went up the river, we saw a lot of fish, and so their protection is working.
Dr. John Robinson has spent a lifetime gaining the knowledge of how to manage and conserve whole landscapes. The son of a diplomat, Robinson was born in Paris and learned early on the value of seeing the world through the eyes of others. For the first 15 years of his career, he applied this skill to field conservation, beginning with a study of primate behavior and ecology.
John was a fine primatologist. His early work is excellent. His early research on wildlife hunting is still classic work that people cite to this day.
He was studying Callicebus monkeys in Colombia. He saw their habitat disappearing. Cattle ranches maybe taking over forest.
You just sort of have this great feeling of loss that moved me from being just a biological scientist into becoming a conservationist.
In 1980, Dr. Robinson established the University of Florida Program for Studies in Tropical Conservation, a hub for training students and developing a conservation model for future work. A self-described pragmatic approach to conservation policy and implementation. Moving to the Wildlife Conservation Society, or WCS, in 1990, he inherited a small but legendary group of field scientists headquartered at the Bronx Zoo and took it global.
He had the vision to say we could grow this small field research program into a global conservation program. Under John's leadership, it's since then just blossomed and grown. We now have this huge global conservation program doing wildlife conservation in 60 countries worldwide.
As the Executive Vice President for Conservation and Science for WCS, Dr. Robinson oversees conservation programs in all of the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Through empowering local people to manage their home ranges and parks, Dr. Robinson's lasting legacy may be the staying power of 3 conservation strategies.
Wow. So I don't see a WCS logo on a coffee plantation very often.
Science focuses on facts. We do things not because we hope that it's going to work out. We do it because the facts tell us that it will.
Those berries are very full of energy. He looked at this conservation area and he said, if I plant the coffee under the trees, they'll do better. That would also be compatible with this conservation forest.
It is the local national staff who think through exactly how do we do it.
The approach that WCS and local communities together with government are trying to do here is to trying to address the threats. WCS key missions is to help the species that live inside the park to survive and to reproduce.
Namatpului had almost its full complement of species, but populations had really been pushed down. Also, throughout the park, there still remains unexploded ordnance from what we call the Vietnam War. Rangers at a place like that really have an immense responsibility of protecting the area. They're dealing with people whose livelihoods are very, very dependent on natural resources.
This was the brilliance that John had in understanding how conservation really works. Getting people to be able to make a better living doing conservation has always been a priority. But your goal should always be to have an exit strategy that allows what you have achieved to be continued in perpetuity.
If I think about Dr. John Robinson, I think about the father of conservation, not just for Laos, but the global conservation. I'm so proud to follow the steps of Dr. John Robinson.
He does it because he loves it. Why does he still love it? It's as important today as it's ever been. He wants to make a difference. He is this kind of secret giant.
Thanks for joining us as we've been sharing the mission of the Indianapolis Prize, and we certainly hope you've enjoyed learning more about the world's top conservationists and how you can help be part of the change.